Hello, my friends. I'm your joyful host, Matt, and welcome back to Flow Into Your Mind. Okay, before I launch into telling you all about another great music artist that the world deserves to know about, I want to take a moment for a little flow into your mind housekeeping. Thank you all for your patience with my releases. I'm still new to the world of being a podcast host, so when I started this venture, I did not quite realize how much time it would take to get everything done. Not to mention that going into the summer months means that things at my day job as a museum manager have gotten a lot busier too. I definitely bit off a bit more than I can chew, but hey, that's how we learn. Everyone who's listening, your support means the world to me, so thank you very, very much. In other news, the band from episode 1, Conception, liked my social media post. But I also recognize that I've been neglecting my social media presence, which I'd like to fix as soon as possible. Okay, with that out of the way, now let me give you some information about today's unrecognized rock star. Like most of my fellow metalheads out there, I tend to avoid lots of country music. However, today I'd like to look at an artist that I would argue is country adjacent. Blues rock and folk rock, although not as popular as they once were in the 60s and 70s, still maintain a relatively strong following. But I feel like they're overshadowed by more popular artists that would be considered strictly country rock. Today, I want to bring attention to a girl who has a powerful bluesy sound with a bit of that southern twang. Her name is Madison Galloway. I could really only piecemeal some history together about Madison, so bear with me while I tell you about her journey as a music artist. And the good news about that is we'll have plenty of time to discuss her awesome music. Madison Galloway is an up and coming blues rocker hailing from the small town of Fergus in Ontario, Canada. In addition to being a singer songwriter, she is also a multi instrumentalist. I've seen videos of her playing guitar, bass, banjo, ukulele, and harmonica. I also saw a picture of her with a fiddle and read that she was classically trained on piano, so I imagine that she can play those instruments just as well. Madison said in an interview that she grew up listening to classic rock like Led Zeppelin and Joni Mitchell, which heavily influenced her style when she started to make her own music as a teenager. She also cited Neil Young, Bob Dylan, Janis Joplin, Cage the Elephant, and Taylor Swift as artists that left an impression during her formative years. She was just 15 years old when she released her first EP titled Who Knows Where. She performed mostly locally in Ontario to promote the EP. In the years after the release of her first few songs, she also was writing new music in between her various performances at local venues and a number of festivals. She also built up her backing band in that time, which has now been playing together since 2018. The band features Nick Hurst on keyboard, Dan Westernenk on bass guitar, and Simon Thompson on drums. All the bandmates have also provided backup vocals. In 2019, Madison released her first full-length album called Moon and Mercury. In the wake of the debut studio album, she went on to be a finalist on the Blues and Roots Radio International Song Contest. Then, in 2022, Madison unveiled her latest single, Open Your Eyes, which rapidly went on to become her most popular track. The song was a winner of CBC Toyota Searchlight 2022 Fan Choice, a contest to find new outstanding music by Canadian artists. The song also became featured on playlists like Joe Bonamassa's Cutting Edge Blues and Spotify's Modern Blues Rock, which is where I actually first heard the song and Madison's talent. Open Your Eyes, along with 4 other songs, are now on my personal summer rock playlist. Madison then achieved the award for Southern Rock Artist of the Year in 2023 at the Josie Music Awards in Nashville, quickly following up with her self titled second album in 2024. And that brings us to where we are now. Currently, Madison is performing a 2025 summer series of rock and roll dinner shows titled Girls Rock, a tribute to the legendary women in the history of rock music, like Janis Joplin, Tina Turner, Joan Jett, Stevie Nicks, Alanis Morissette, and many more. The shows are held exclusively at the Branson Columns Event Center in Branson, Missouri. Now, for what makes Madison's music memorable, I feel like it has a timeless quality to it. You could play her songs for anyone from old age to elementary school, and they would probably find it really enjoyable. As usual, I've listened to her full discography in chronological order, and I'd like to let you know what my fresh takes are and hopefully turn you into a Madison Galloway fan too. Her first EP, Who Knows Where, I have to be honest, it sounds very much like it was written by a teenager. Mind you, that's not always a negative critique. I actually love how you can hear her trying to hone in on her own style. But beyond that, none of the songs genuinely stand out to me, and some of the music lacks the quality of layering and sound mixing, which would generally be found on a professionally produced album. The EP just lacks depth and feels mostly like she was just trying too hard to write like a pop singer, while keeping the music folksy. Oh, but my friends, then we get to her first full-length album, Moon and Mercury, and everything about it immediately feels much more mature and professionally mixed. The rock elements from the guitars and drums are what bring an edge to her music, so it doesn't remain completely in the realm of folk. She might be from Ontario, but her music style would feel completely at home in Tennessee. Each time I listen to Madison Galloway, I'm reminded of some bands that I listened to at various restaurants and bars in Memphis and Nashville. The only repeat song from her first EP that's also on this album is Love's Not a Game, but this time around there's much more maturity and nuance in Madison's vocals, and I especially like hearing the song performed by a full backing band playing along with her. The title track, Moon and Mercury, incorporates some experimental moments which I was pleasantly surprised by, including some scatting from our singer-songwriter, and an instrument that I can't quite tell if it's just a super resonant banjo or a sitar. I hear this instrument a few more times on the album, in songs like Rose-Colored Glasses and Coffee Stains, and every time I second guess myself whether it's actually a banjo or not. At this point now, I think I've accidentally convinced myself that it's a sitar. Oh dear. Oh, and speaking of the song Coffee Stains, it is also rather experimental and feels like it draws on inspirations from other folk music outside of North America. It is the only instrumental song in Madison's entire repertoire, and it honestly feels like something I would hear while playing the video game Civilization. I think I made that same reference during the Cartagena episode too. Anyways, you'll also find a cover of the famous song House of the Rising Sun, which was released in 1964 by the Animals. It's not exactly a one-to-one cover, and I think Madison does a really nice job honoring the song without overtly making it into something completely different, the way any good cover song should be. My favorite song from Moon and Mercury is easily the sixth track, Beginnings and Ends. It starts with such a sweet ukulele chord progression, and then a little over a minute and a half in, the song suddenly changes vibes, almost turning into a ska song. Plus, an accordion gets involved. I just remember going through the song for the first time, and I said, and I quote, "How many instruments are there?" out loud. And then the last minute of the track has added sound effects in and voice chatter, which makes it feel like you were suddenly dropped into a nightclub in the 1930s or something. It's awesome, wacky, and jaw-dropping. Beginnings and Ends is definitely a song that people need to hear. Galloway's self titled 2024 album shows even more growth and development in her sound. I love the bass heavy mixing of this album. She really amped things up a notch and took away some of the folk elements, which used to be much more noticeable and present within her songs, and turned the tracks on the self titled album more into rock anthems. So, if you prefer Joni Mitchell's style, stick with Moon and Mercury. But if you enjoy something like the Black Crowes, then I think the Madison Galloway self titled album will certainly get you grooving. David O'Neill from uberrock.co.uk said regarding this album, quote, "There's not a bad track on this 11-track album, which are all a similar style and format." End quote. And I agree that these songs feel less experimental than those on the first album. As far as rock anthems are concerned, look no further than the song Freedom. It's loud, fuzzy, has a steady drum groove with a simple yet strong message in the words. She also gets to demonstrate more of her low-range vocals on the tracks Love Like Yours and Devil at My Door. Also, Devil at My Door would probably appeal to a lot of fans of Southern Gothic music. Ooh, now I am considering doing an episode on a Southern Gothic band. Now, this album also has a cover song of Jefferson Airplane's hit, White Rabbit. And my personal favorite on this album, I'm especially fond of Open Your Eyes. It was, after all, the first song that I heard by Madison Galloway, and whether it's the instrumentation, the vocals, or the message contained within the lyrics, there's something about this song that has a way of sticking with you. So I implore you to listen to Open Your Eyes, even if you don't give any of her other songs a try. Again, I need to say that her music feels timeless. I mean, this song could have very easily been created in the 70s, 80s, 90s, or even the early 2000s. At the time that this episode is being recorded, Madison Galloway has 2,891 monthly listeners on Spotify. To wrap things up here, I think if Madison Galloway gets more recognition during this pivotal time as a rising star, she could easily become an international sensation. But don't just take my word for it. Go check out some of her music. And when you do, please let me know. I'd really like to hear from all of you. Links to where you can find Madison are included in the description. Make sure that you follow the podcast so you never miss finding your next favorite music artist. And until we meet again, let that good music flow into your mind.